Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he is considering to eliminate the use of fentanyl for medical purposes as a way to face its illegal trafficking. The president emphasized that if his government is successful, the United States should do the same without any discrepancy. The head of state reiterated that the commitment will be that all fentanyls, chemical precursors smuggled into the country, will continue to be combated. López Obrador explained that during the meeting he held with the White House National Security Advisor Lee Sherwood Randall, they agreed to continue working together so that fentanyl does not reach the borders of both countries.
The Secretary of the Navy, with Pres, were to order the import of fentanyl, fundamentally from Asia. We have proved that they were allowed to import it, and fentanyl was used for trafficking, to introduce it into the United States.
President López Obrador also condemned the U.S. hypocrisy for wrongfully blaming Mexico for the entry of fentanyl into the United States.
It is easy for them to blame Mexico in an unjustified manner, out of empty politics, out of hypocrisy. They have dared to say that if we do not control the entry of fentanyl to the United States, which we have also been warning here, it not only enters through Mexico, through the Mexican border to the United States, it also enters directly through Canada from Asia.
On Wednesday, a ceremony was held at the Venezuelan Military Academy to commemorate the transfer of the cadet saber of Commander Hugo Chavez to the mountain barracks. Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez led the ceremony, which ratified the commitment of the military to Chavez's legacy, who with courage and determination defended the homeland and had the vision of a new multipolar world. The ceremony included a caravan, which was in charge of carrying for almost 10 kilometers the iconic saber used by Commander Chavez during his time at the military academy. In this context, the Venezuelan people gathered early in the morning along the route the caravan would follow in order to honor the legacy of the commander of the Bolivarian Revolution. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said that Beijing welcomes Honduras' decision to establish diplomatic ties with China.
We welcome the statement by the Honduran side. The fact that 181 countries have established diplomatic relations with China on the basis of the One China principle fully shows that establishing diplomatic ties with China is the right choice that accords with the trend of history and our times. China is ready to grow friendly and cooperative relations with all countries, including Honduras, on the basis of the One China principle.
Peru has issued a red alert for Cyclone Yaku in the city of Lima. The measure includes the suspension of school activities and the recommendation of remote work in all sectors. The President of the Republic, Dina Boluarte, has announced that the entire civil protection platform of the districts and metropolitan area of Lima surrounding the Rimac, Chillon, and Lurin River basins are on alert. In addition, the personnel and resources of the armed forces and the National Police will be on standby to assist the affected populations where they are needed. School and university activities in public and private educational institutions in the regions of Lima and Callao will also be suspended for 24 hours. Cyclone Freddy's death toll has risen to 225 in Malawi, while there are so far 707 injured and 41 reported missing. Malawi's Department of Disaster Management Affairs said in a statement that about 88,000 people have been displaced by the floods and landslides. The nation's president, Lazarus Chakwera, visited the areas affected by the storm on Wednesday, where he will lead the recovery operations. The French meteorological agency Météo France warned that heavy rains will continue for the next 48 hours.
Malawi is in a state of disaster. What Cyclone Freddy has done is to pull us back even when we were trying to rebuild because of past tragedies. And I appeal to the international community to please look at us with such favor, because we need help. We need help in terms of people that have been rescued, who have lost everything, needing what is necessary: shelter, clothing, food.
In his weekly audience, Pope Francis expresses his closeness to the people of Malawi who have been hit by a tropical cyclone that ripped through the country, triggering landslides that killed more than 200 people. His prayer comes as rescues scramble on Wednesday to reach survivors in Malawi's battered city of Blantyre. He prayed at the open-air general audience at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican.
I'm close to the people of Malawi, hit in recent days by a very strong cyclone. I pray for the dead, the injured, the displaced. May the Lord support the families and the communities hardest hit by this calamity.
Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In Türkiye, flash floods killed at least 14 people in two provinces previously devastated by last month's 7.8 earthquake. Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu confirmed that 12 victims were recorded in the province of Şanlıurfa and 2 in neighboring Adıyaman. The Turkish Disaster Management Agency reported that more than a dozen professional divers participate in the rescue operations. The agency also reported that more than 100 millimeters of rain fell in the last 24 hours in both areas. Authorities called on citizens not to leave their homes and ordered the evacuation of civilians whose houses are close to rivers. On Wednesday, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad meets in Moscow with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. The two leaders talk about several issues of their economic and political agenda, bilateral relations and cooperation, in addition to the latest regional and international developments. The two presidents also discussed the Russian military operation in Ukraine, in relation to which President Al-Assad reiterated Syria's stance in support of Russia's right to defend its national security. On the other hand, President Putin said that the Russian military operation is a war of existence, adding that the West has tried to destabilize the country's economic and political situation, but that Russia has not only been able to cope with that challenge, but also has achieved an economic growth despite the war.
Dear Mr. President, I am very glad to see you in Moscow. Thank you for accepting our invitation. We are in constant contact, and our relations are developing.
I reiterate the firm Syrian stance in support of this war against the old and new Nazism. I say that this is old and new Nazism because this Nazism was supported by the West before World War II, and it embraced these leaders after the war, and continues today to support them as before. Our stance today is not a result of our strong friendship or a token of gratitude for Russia's position towards us. It rather stems from the need in today's world for a rebalance. Otherwise, the world will head towards explosion and destruction.
During the exchange, the Syrian president thanked the Russian head of state for his firm positions on the war in Syria.
I would like to express the gratitude of the Syrian people to you and to the Russian government for the firm positions regarding the war in Syria. These positions are based on the territorial integrity of the Syrian Arab Republic and the sovereignty of its state, the denouncement of terrorism and refusal of the presence of foreign forces on its soil.
Syrian Defense Minister Ali Mahmoud Abbas discussed with his Russian counterpart Sergei Shoigu the military cooperation between both nations. The two sides underlined the importance of continued close cooperation, one that preserves the security and stability of Syria. The Russian minister extended his government's condolences to the families of the victims and those affected by the devastating earthquake, asserting Moscow's support to Syria. General Abbas, on the other hand, hoped that the bilateral cooperation would continue to thrive in the future, extending his gratitude for Russia's aid to Syria. In Switzerland, the Credit Suisse bank shares plummeted by up to 23% in the nation's stock market, followed by fears of a possible collapse. The bank's main shareholder, the Saudi National Bank of Saudi Arabia, declared that it doesn't foresee new liquidity injections to support Switzerland's second largest bank. The financial institution has been experiencing difficulties since it was accused of abandoning its neutrality after freezing funds of Russian individuals and organizations, causing a massive outflow of Russian and Chinese capital from its coffers. Analysts consider that an eventual collapse of the bank could have a knock-on effect on banks in Switzerland and across Europe. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and enjoy a Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back From the South. Ethiopia's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen hosted on Wednesday the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The U.S. top diplomat, who's set to visit two countries on the continent, will first meet with Ethiopian federal officials and Tigrayan representatives in Addis Ababa. Talks are expected to focus on the implementation of the peace deal that ended the war in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, as well as humanitarian support. The preferential trade agreements between the U.S. and the African nation, which was suspended by the armed conflict, could also be on the agenda. On Thursday, the Secretary of State is scheduled to visit Niger and with the nation's President Mohamed Bazoum and his Foreign Minister Hassoumi Massoudou. Thousands of sub-Saharan African students in Tunisia are claiming for protection as they remain fearful after a surge of racist attacks following comments by President Kais Saied against illegal immigration. The violence erupted after the Tunisian head of state blamed a group of asylum seekers from sub-Saharan Africa for most crimes in the country, alleging there was a criminal plot to change the nation's demographic makeup. Amid what witnesses describe as a hunt for blacks, Christian Kwangan, president of the association representing sub-Saharan African students in Tunisia, Al-Assad, recalled that parents were worried about their children being assaulted or arrested. During this period of time, the group documented more than 20 assaults against students, including 10 with knives, and over 400 arrests. In this context, the entity is demanding the government put policies in place to guarantee the safety of sub-Saharan African students.
The numbers are quite fluctuating. There are 400 arrests. There are more than 40 to 50 students who remained in detention in police stations during the last 2 or 3 weeks, and therefore went directly to prison. Fortunately, most of them have been released. At the same time, there are those who were evicted from their homes, more than 20 cases. Of course, many of them did not report and went to stay with friends, but there are at least 20 cases in this very difficult situation.
Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission started to register voters in Harare ahead of the general elections. Zimbabwe Electoral Commission launched a 10-day registration blitz to enable those intending to register as voters to obtain critical documents like birth certificates and national identity cards. Ahead of the elections, main political parties and leaders have already started preparations in earnest with rallies and various campaign activities. A date has yet to be set for the vote, which are expected to be early in August. The people of the Gaza Strip are holding the so-called March of Anger in support of the Palestinian prisoners who are victims of punitive measures imposed by the Israeli prison authorities. The mobilization takes place in different points of the Gaza Strip and the occupied territories of the West Bank. The march joins the acts of disobedience carried out by the Palestinian prisoners to defeat the punitive measures imposed by the Israeli prison service. The leaders of the demonstration pointed out that 4,500 Palestinians, among them 160 minors and 30 women, are deprived of their freedom in Israel. Human rights organizations warn that solitary confinement applies in these prisons, family visits are denied, and medical treatment is inadequate, among other degrading conditions. Venezuela completed a flawless pool play campaign in the World Baseball Classic. The Caribbean team defeated Israel 5-1. Venezuela's offense put the team quickly ahead in the first inning thanks to hits by Acuña Jr. and Eugenio Suarez. Venezuela then extended its lead in the fourth with a spectacular home run by Eduardo Escobar to center field. Eugenio Suarez sealed the win with another homer. Israel scored its lone run with a trio of singles by Mendlinger, Wielansky, and Jacob Goldfarb in the bottom of the seventh inning. On Wednesday, Napoli Football Club won 3-0 against Eintracht Frankfurt in the last 16th round of the UEFA Champions League. The Italian club reached the quarterfinals of this competition for the first time in its history. The Blues easily overcame a Frankfurt side that did not seem to want to hurt the home side. During the first half, the teams studied each other and the Napolitans didn't seem to be taking any risks. However, Victor Osimhen's goals in the last minutes changed the course of the match. Only 60 seconds were enough for the Nigerian to turn the game around. Frankfurt's efforts were to no avail, as Zielinski extinguished the Germans' hopes with a penalty and sealed the game with 30 minutes to go. In this context, before the match between Napoli and Frankfurt teams, fans of the German club clashed Italian police forces. The Italian press reported that around 600 fans of the German club, supported by their peers of the Atalanta from Bergamo, damaged a patrol and a private car in the city center. Naples authorities arranged an operation of 800 agents to prevent incidents in the city after Napoli won 2-0 in the first leg. We have come to the end of this news brief, and you can find these and many other stories on our website telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.